Hello. Okay, so we're talking moulinettes, otherwise known as wrist circles. And here we can see a forward wrist circle, and it's a forward outer wrist circle, because you can see as I go to supinate my hand now, the club is going to go onto the outside of my wrist. You'll notice I'm not over gripping it. I've got a good extension through my wrist. As it comes round, I go into pronation, fingers just come on, and then there's some flexion in the wrist. So there's lots going on with the wrist and the movement. You can see in real time there, as it speeds up, you can see the wrist sort of oscillating up and down to facilitate those movements. Here we're going backwards. So again, not over gripping the club, just letting the weight of the club take my hand into that supination there. A little bit of flexion now comes into the fingers, into the wrist to help nudge that club around. Then we're using the natural weight of the club and gravity to bring it back round before my hand then goes open palmed, palm up, supinating. Again, the fingers come round and just help it to come back round. Back in real time, you'll see the wrist just oscillating up and down. This is forward inner moulinette. So the thumb turns down initially, and again, not over gripping the club. You can see where the fulcrum or the pivot point of the club is pretty much, and you'll notice it will move a little bit. There'll be a little bit of sort of rotation, flexion, and as it comes back up and around, fingers just help it to go around to do the next repetition. But I'm not over gripping it. I know where the club is, it's predictable. This one is going to be a reverse, and this is probably the toughest one for most people. It's a backward inner or backward medial, if you want to use medial rather than lateral. And this one is difficult because obviously it's putting quite a lot of force on that thumb as it comes round. And if you're new to this is probably one that you might drop a few times. So maybe use an older or a club that you don't mind sort of maybe dropping. And that's part of the course, you know, don't be ashamed of dropping the club. Trust me, I've dropped clubs loads of times. No big deal. So now we're looking at a figure of 8. So we're going to be starting with a forward inner wrist circle, or a forward inner moulinette. And as the palm then supinates and comes up, we're going to then go into a forward outer wrist circle. So one on the inside, one on the outside. And it really sort of, when I do figure of 8s with a single club, I often don't keep them quite as tight as these wrist circles I'm doing now. I'll actually make the figure of 8 more of a lateral figure of 8. It looks more like an infinity sign. That's what I imagine I'm drawing with my wrist as I create that shape. Here we are doing the same movement, but we're going backwards. So it's a figure of 8, but so this time we're doing a reverse outer wrist circle. As the fingers help it to come back round and I go into a bit of wrist flexion, it's then going to go backward inner wrist circle. Thumbs down, trying to keep it on that single plane of motion. Again, you can see how much flexion there is in the wrist there, trying to allow the club to stay on that one plane. And then some applications with it. Well, here is a reciprocating or alternating figure 8s. You can see I'm trying to make it look as pretty as possible, to trying to keep that 180 degrees between the clubs. And with this particular set here that you're looking at, I entered that sequence with the right hand. So essentially what happened is, as I started the movement, I go into a forward inner wrist circle with the right hand. I turned my thumb down, and then the left hand followed it. On the next one that you're going to see, just coming up now, I start with my left hand there, look. So my left hand does that same. So it's again doing an inner forward wrist circle, and the right hand then does the same move as it goes the opposite side. Practice with your left hand, so entering these sequences. If you always practice with your right hand, you don't want to get shown up sometime. Your left hand needs to be practiced as well, so you should be adept at coming into these moves with both left and right hand. Any problems, comment below. Thank you all.